Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It is me, your host, Joe Slepsky. And this is another episode of Joe on Joe, where I comb through every page and every issue of Gi Joe, a Real American Hero, page by page, panel by panel, and we watch all the episodes of the cartoon in great detail, and we comment on them MST3K style. Today's another Joe and Joe Illustrated. We are covering the next issue in our run, which is Gi Joe, Real American Hero number 108. That's right. We're reaching into cover dates of 1991, so get ready for it. And what a cover it is, too. This is the Brian Hitch cover, guys. Brian Hitch has entered the chat with this cover, and I like it. You guys remember this issue? It is Snake Eyes holding Cobra Commanders. Actually, Snake Eyes kind of looking a little bit like one of the Mole Man's minions, one of the Subterraneans, holding Cobra Commander hostage with an Uzi and some night creepers looking on. So it's a great issue. A lot of excitement. Before we get into that, I want you all right now to stop what you're doing. Go on. Well, don't stop listening, but pick up your phone and flip over to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and follow me at Joe on Joe Pod. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. If you love the show and feel inclined to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/joeandjoepod and you can become a patron and help keep the lights on. Patrons get access to every single episode of Joe on Joe that we've done. This is Illustrateds go all the way back to issue number 1. So we've done 108 of those. Plus we've done some of the special missions and annuals, and I needed to circle back and finish those special missions, and I promise you I will get to that. But while you're on the internet doing all of those things, you also need to subscribe to the podcast Movies in a Meal, which is our great sponsor. Hear more about them now.
Listeners, I know what you need in your life. You need more podcasts. And you also love movies. So why not do a podcast that's about not one movie? It's about not 2 movies. It's about 3 movies and a meal. I'm talking the Movies and a Meal podcast. This show is great. It's brought to you by Keith, Brad, and Ben. And each week they bring a new movie to the table, which they all discuss as a group. And it's not, your highfalutin movies. It's What We Do in the Shadows, The Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Out of Sight. It's Bad Education, Ghost Rider, and A View to a Kill. It's X-Men Last Stand, Queen Sugar, The Mandalorian, and Major League 2. They are a lot of fun to listen to. You guys know Ben. It's our friend Ben Penseriga. He was a guest on Joe and Joe. In fact, Ben was the very first remote guest that I ever had on this podcast, so he's always got a special place in my heart. I'm really digging this. I just started listening to it last week. It is a lot of fun. They bring a guest in. The guest, I listened to their Heathers episode. They were joined by Kelly, and she went in depth on her favorite movie, which was Heathers, and it made me want to go watch Heathers to watch with them. I really dig it. So guys, find them out there at Movies and a Meal, Twitter, Instagram. Their website is moviesandameal.podbean.com. They put out 1 episode a week. Give them a listen, guys. Support them. Let them know Joe on Joe sent you. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It is quite entertaining. And now back to the show.
And we're back. It's funny. So we're heading into Christmas. We're just a couple weeks away. And I was thinking, like, what can we do? And I'll think of something fun to do. Last year, I think we did a Christmas poem. But I was like, what if we did the 12 Days of Joe Miss? And I did one podcast, like one, on the first day of podcast. And then on the second day, do 2 podcasts. And, the third day, do 3 podcasts, 3 Lords. And I did the math on that. And it would have been 78 podcasts in 12 days. So the math did not work in my favor. And so we're going to come up with something different. But hopefully it'll be fun too. But that was funny when I sat down and did the math on that song. That's a lot of gifting. It's really, really a lot of gifting. It's a lot of Lords of Leaping. But it's not a lot. All of the great comic books that came out the same month that Gi Joe 108 came out.
You were saying?
That was a very ham-fisted segue. I actually didn't know where I was going with that. So thank you for going with me. And you were saying, for you new listeners out there, that's our segment where we look at other comic books and movies that were on the shelf the same month that the issue we're talking about was, and then also movies that were in the theater. So we kind of give you a vibe and a sense of atmosphere, of like entertainment atmosphere. So we're going to look at DC Comics first, and DC Comics with cover dates of January of 1991. We've got Batman 458. I'm fairly sure this is the first appearance of, what's this guy's name? It's Otis or Hugo or Harold. That's right. It's a big Harold issue. And this is when Harold comes to live with Batman in the Batcave. If you don't remember Harold, he was the Hunchback of Notre Dame for Batman stories. Alan Grant and Norman Brayfield used him. And he actually served a really cool purpose, and he would hang around the Bat books for years to come. He was a developmentally challenged dude with a giant hunchback who was a whiz with fixing things. And after, it is literally the Hunchback of Notre Dame story. So when people of Gotham kind of think that he's going to hurt this girl, which Batman knows he's not going to hurt him, but the mob is after him, Batman adopts him and takes him in to live in the Batcave and fix his cars. I'll say this for the Harold stuff. Some people love Harold. So I actually liked him. I always thought it was charming. What I liked is that it broke the paradigm. It broke that Batman paradigm. Batman always had, Alfred and Robin, Commissioner Gordon. Then they introduced Oracle, actually right around this time. They had introduced, what's his name, from Wayne Industries, and he was in the Morgan Freeman's character. They introduced him probably a decade earlier, and that had this Lucius Fox, and that had this business support side to it. You know what I mean? So they had slowly built up their supporting crew, but none of those people lived with Batman. None of those people lived in the everyday, and really it was what Batman was missing. Now they fill that in the movies by making Lucius the mechanic, but in this era of comics, Harold was the mechanic, that knew Batman's identity and just was there to fix all the stuff. Like in the Dark Knight movies, they use Lucius as that assistant, like Alfred, but the guy who gets him all his toys. Well, that's what Alfred was doing in this era of Batman. And it was just neat. It was a neat breaking of the paradigm, and I kind of dug it. And then you add on the fact that visually he just looks like Hunchback of Notre Dame. So that was a win. Kind of funny and a win. What else do we got here? Books of Magic, issue number 2. El Diablo. 16. I read this El Diablo series. I think Mike Parabuck did the art, on a lot of it. It was cool. It's not the El Diablo that they used in that Suicide Squad where it was a guy on fire. They reboot him years later. But this was, he was like a small town lawyer, a small Texas lawyer, and he would fight crime, fight street crime. So think of Daredevil. Literally think of Daredevil, but set it in Texas. And that's kind of what you get for this era's El Diablo. The Flash TV special, Volume 1. This is a cool cover because they use the Flash logo from the TV show. You've also got John Wesley Shipp on the cover. This is always a fun book to pick up in your back issues. Guy Gardner introduces us to General Glory in 46. I remember not loving this story arc because I don't think I appreciated it. I mean, I knew they were doing a riff on Captain America, but it was also a kind of a riff on Shazam and Captain Marvel rather, and but it also just was a golden age comics riff that I didn't appreciate at the time, and I think I'd appreciate it more now. I don't know that when the last time I've reread it, but the gist of it is, and Guy Gardner had talked about his hero General Glory before, and it led up to this of it was like a comic book hero of his that, and basically it's Captain America, but it's more Shazam than Captain America. Like it was a guy that transformed. And what they basically introduced, that there was an old guy in a nursing home who had forgotten what his secret code word was. So he eventually remembers it. And when he does, the old guy turns into a young and hardy General Glory. And then he joins the Justice League, and Guy Gardner is in complete awe. And it's a way to change the team dynamic, because then that's someone that Guy Gardner is going to respect, because he respects General Glory / Captain America / Shazam. And I'm pretty sure Guy attributed his haircut to General Glory's sidekick. Like that's the haircut that his sidekick wore. And so that's why Guy Gardner cut his hair like that, bowl cut. Not necessarily the mo. I mean, it's the mo, but not necessarily, but he attributed it to his Bucky, whatever I forget what his Bucky was called. So that's a fun little run. Let's see, Mr. Mir. Oh, Robin #1. This is a cool book. This is a great series. Now they must have printed 5 jillion copies of Robin #1, because this book, it shows up in everyone who brings in comic books from this era to sell to the store. They have a copy of Robin #1 in there, and this whole run of Robin, and they should, because it's great. This Robin miniseries was awesome, and it was really the first Robin series with Robin on the title. Even Dick Grayson didn't even get a Robin series, and it did what it did for Tim Drake, what everyone missed about Jason Todd, in that it trained him. It said Batman's not just going to throw a kid out on the street and kind of like train on the job. No, he sent him around the world to train with his masters to get him up to speed. And that's what was cool about this. I loved it. I loved this series. And the covers, I believe Brian Boland, really great series. They then did 2 more miniseries, which were Diminishing Returns. And they also went wild with the covers. The Robin 2, were there 4 covers for that? And they had 3D insert, like playing card size insert images on the cover. And there were 4 covers for each of the issues. It was a lot, but we're not there yet. The first Robin series is really, really great. And then earlier I mentioned Oracle, and yeah, sure enough, Suicide Squad 49, it's the same month, they introduced Oracle in Suicide Squad. And this was, of course, Barbara Gordon, after she had been paralyzed by the Joker, getting shot during the Killing Joke. This is turning her into Oracle. And it's a great character turn, and a great way to use continuity to build a better character. Use the tragedy that comics are about. Tragedy. Comic books are about overcoming obstacles. And so there was the obstacle put in her way, and they made the most of it. And Oracle was a force, and a really, really great way to use Barbara Gordon for many, 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 many years. So Suicide Squad 49 is really cool.
You were saying?
I was, Stalker. And now we're going over to Marvel Comics. And let's see. Oh, I don't know if I remembered to update you guys, but I did order, and I did get, where are they at? Oh, I moved them. The Hollywood, it should be Hollywood Superstars. I got them. I got them last week. Hollywood Superstars arrived from eBay. So I'm going to read it, and I'll get back to you with my review. But it looks a whole lot of fun. But I did order me some Hollywood Superstars. Incredible Hulk 377. This is a fun book. This, I believe, is the first Professor Hulk. Isn't that the one? Isn't this the one? And there's 3. Let's see. Hold on one second. Yeah, this is the Professor. This is when the Hulk merges everything and comes out of it as Professor Hulk. And what's interesting from a collector perspective on this is, yes, the regular version has gone up, but they did 3 printings on this cover, and each time they used different ink. And the 3rd printing, which is the hardest to come by because it's a small number. Let's just throw this out there and say 6,000 of them or something like that. The 3rd printing is actually more expensive, and then the first printing. And so if you get your hands on that, check it out. It's a fun book to snag for your collector to scratch that collector's itch. But yeah, Incredible Hulk 377 is fun. That whole Peter David era is fun. I really dig it. Fantastic Four 348. This is great. This was an interlude story because Simonson was getting bogged down with a little. I believe that's why they did this. He was getting bogged down with the drawing, the regular series. So they interjected this four-part story that was drawn by Art Adams, and but they didn't. But the actual FF were on an adventure, and because Simonson was still writing the book, like he didn't. It was one of those situations where they had a problem in production, or they planned for it or whatever, to give Walter a break to keep his adventure story, but they didn't want to break the actual adventure, so they brought in the Hulk, the Gray Hulk. He was gray at the time. Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, and Wolverine as the quote unquote new Fantastic Four, and let them have an adventure, drawn by Art Adams of all people. It's so much fun that this iteration of the team, one is like considered, it's considered canon, so they're all considered the special FF, but they also they show up, they use this in other medium, and we've referenced this many times in the comic books. They've in Marvel, one of the Marvel top-down games, like the 4-player Ultimate Alliance or something. If you do this combo of characters as the 4 characters you select, you get special powers because it treats them like the new Fantastic Four. It's really great. If you've never read this arc, it's seek it out. It is a whole lot of fun. What else do we got here? Bullseye's back over in Daredevil 288. It's covered by Lee Weeks from our recent Gi Joe stuff. That's exciting. Let's see. Iron Man, the cover of Iron Man's fun. It's the Armor Wars 2, which is like the sequel to the original Armor Wars, drawn by John Romita Jr. I don't remember enjoying the sequel story as much. I like John Romita Jr.'s version. I like John Romita Jr. period, but I like his version of Iron Man. It's kind of weird. It's kind of grittier, I think, than people tend to want to think about doing Iron Man. But this cover's fun because it harkens back to that Spider-Man trapped in the rubble image, which is always a classic. This is a great book for nostalgia, and this is a book that gets people. This next book is one that always gets people laughing anytime this book comes through the store. It's Marvel Illustrated, the swimsuit issue, cover by, I think that's Joe Jusko, drawing the She-Hulk, putting her butt out all the way out there, and inside is men and women of the Marvel universe in various shades of various forms of undress in their swimsuits, showing it to the world. It's pretty great. Like it's hilarious. They would do like Marvel Year in Review, which I can't remember if we talked about that already. This would also spawn, Image swimsuit specials. A whole lot of people did quote unquote swimsuit specials. I want to say this got there first, and it's fun. I still have my copy because it's just hilarious. They don't go for a lot of money in collectibles. Like they probably go for like $10 because, I'm sure they ran off a ton of them, but it's really, really funny. What else? Punisher Bloodlines #1. That was a separate deluxe format miniseries. Punisher. Return to Big Nothing is great. That's Alan Grant and Mike Zeck, which were the team behind that Punisher miniseries. Or is it Stephen Grant? Sorry, Stephen Grant. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I believe I said Alan Grant, and it is Stephen Grant. They were the team behind the Punisher miniseries. They reunite to tell a story. The Big Nothing is, it's either, I think it's a hill in Vietnam, but it's basically a return to one of the adventures, one of the traumas that he went through during his time in Vietnam. That's the reference to Big Nothing. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good graphic novel. I actually only read it recently for the first time a couple years ago. This is a neat one. And the reason this one stood out to me is one I never heard of, and I saw it in a back issue bin in the last couple of years. I picked it up. It's called Suburban Jersey Ninja She-Devils. And it is exactly what it kind of sort of sounds like a comic parody of Ninja Turtles with suburban housewives. I don't understand the origins of it. I don't know why or how it got published through Marvel. But what's great about it is it's the artist on it is Amanda Connor, and it's written by Steve Gerber, so it's got this great acerbic take. That's probably why Steve Gerber was probably like, I want to do this, give it to me. And Amanda Connor did the art, and Amanda Connor is really one of the top sequential artists, like one of the more solid, like top 20, I'd say. It's really great sequential artist working these days. She does a ton of stuff with, she did the Harley Quinn series for years. Works, she's married to Jimmy Palmiotti, and she herself is just so freaking talented. And this is one of her very, very early works. I brought it up to her at a con. I was like, hey, I picked this book up, and asked her about it. And she laughed because it was so early in her career. Like, it might have been one of her very first pieces. And it's charming. You see this because she's really talented, and you see that some of that in this early work. Then you also go, oh, but it's so reflective of the time. But it's kind of funny. I haven't seen it a lot, but if you see it, pick it up. It's definitely worth the dollar bin pickup for sure. And you know what? There's one more. It's a what the, because it makes sense. It's a what the number 10, which is their Christmas special, and it's got Santa Claus on the cover, and it's what the. So, you know, always celebrate what the and their Christmas special.
You were saying?
All right, Stalker. Well, now we're going to go to the movies. So, cover date January 91 was actually September of 1990. And first week or so, not much. On September 12th, we got Postcards from the Edge, which is Carrie Fisher's movie. She wrote the screenplay loosely based on her life growing up in Hollywood. And it's great. We always celebrate Carrie Fisher, and the stories she tells of her life were always awesome. If you've never seen her one-woman show that she did it just a few years before she passed, absolutely fabulous. On the 14th, I know I've seen this movie, Hardware. Yeah, Iggy Pop's in it, and Lemmy, and it is a British science film with Dylan McDermott and Stacey Travis. What is this about? It's a self-repairing robot that goes on a rampage. I absolutely have seen this. And I think it's kind of fun in that B-movie kind of way. I know I've seen that movie. Well, it don't matter because September is wiped away because on the 19th, which it's the only movie that was released on 19th. Smart of them. Goodfellas, everybody. Goodfellas. Come on. What am I going to say about Goodfellas? It's probably Scorsese's greatest, most rounded film from both technical and, if you count technical and audience satisfying, I don't think anything of his is going to beat Goodfellas. He's done probably better films, but nothing is more satisfying than Goodfellas. Goodfellas is just fabulous, and I love it, and everything about it is great. And that's all. I mean, what else am I going to say? Well, we've got... Oh, man. They just did on the 21st, they just did... it's a movie called Don't Tell Her It's Me. And they sometime in the last year, they did it. How Did This Get Made on this movie? And it's about Steve Guttenberg pretending to be like an Australian tough guy. And I know I've seen this movie when I was a kid, and I remember loving the episode they did, but it's terrible. But that came out on September 21st. September 28th. Okay, so basically, the answer here is Goodfellas owned the month. Although, there is a movie called I Come in Peace, starring Dolph Lundgren, Brian Benben, and it's a sci-fi movie like with science fiction and cops and stuff. And it had the tagline in the movie. Someone says like a come piece, and they were like, and Dolph Lundgren had to deliver like and you go in pieces kind of a delivery. I do recall that from the trailer. Pacific Heights also came out on the 28th, which was, I remember being really excited about this. Michael Keaton playing the bad guy, and this is just, 91? So this is, or actually 90. So this is just a year removed from Batman. And Michael Keaton was like, let's do me as a bad guy. And he was great. This is actually a fun movie. I've not revisited this in a long time, but he's spying on the tenants in the apartment below him. Oh, directed by John Schlesinger. That's cool. Yeah. So I should revisit Pacific Heights. Also, King of New York came out on the 28th with Christopher Walken, Larry Fishburne, David Caruso, rather. Wesley Snipes, Steve Buscemi. That's a cool movie. Oh, and Giancarlo Esposito, of course. Oh, and Texasville, the Peter Bogdanovich movie, which was a sequel to The Last Picture Show. So they gave Goodfellas wide berth early in the month, and then they came in strong that last week, I think. I think that last week of September was a little bit of competition for Goodfellas. And that's it.
Now, mass is ready.
It's true, Destro. Mass is ready. And Mass is ready to talk about G.I. Joe number 108. So we said, cover by Brian Hitch. You wouldn't know it, though, because they almost cut off his signature. I was able to identify it from the signature just because I remember what Hitch's signature looked like back then. I did have to Google it. The Marvel database doesn't actually have it, but a quick Google answer confirms that it is, in fact, a young Brian Hitch. Still doing... he's still living in that Alan Davis shadow, I would say. It's not super apparent on this cover. I think this cover is got enough non-Alan Davis-y looks to it, but I see it a little bit in the Night Creepers, but otherwise it's strong. It's a strong cover. Snake Eyes is wearing one of the Mole Man Minions eyepieces, though. That's funny, and he's got like a machine gun bandolier on, which I think is a little odd. Like, that's not really, Snake Eyes hasn't worn that, but it's a first time for everything. And, but his Cobra Commander, like the figure work is great. Let's put it that way. So some of the details may be a little off, but the figure work is great. I love that Snake Eyes pops over the cover. And up at the top, we see a new regular feature starts this month, the G.I. Joe dossier. So get ready for that.
Yo, Joe!
Apparent conclusions. Script by Larry Hama, pencils M.D. Bright, inks Randy Umberland, Rick Parker colors, Bob Sharon editor, Bob Sharon coloring, Bobby Chase editor, Tom DeFalco editor-in-chief, and it was Randy Umberland on inks and Rick Parker on lettering. I think I flipped that. Starts with a bang, and it's Lieutenant Falcon firing from the side of an Ostriker. So seeing Falcon got me thinking, why are we calling him he's Falcon, but he's always Lieutenant Falcon, and does that mean he never gets a bump up? Like, does he ever get a raise? Like, does he have to stay a lieutenant forever? And I was like, well, Lieutenant Falcon, that's hearing that's straight from the movie. His file card just said Falcon. I'm sorry, his figure card just said Falcon. And the file card said Falcon too. And then I see another file card that said Lieutenant Falcon. So I think his name is Falcon. And then at some point he got the Lieutenant Falcon tag, but would that drag? What do you guys think? Like, I'm not confused. I know his name's Falcon. I don't mean it like that, but like, if he got bumped up to Commander, would we always have to call him Commander Falcon? If he was Sergeant Falcon, would it always be Sergeant Falcon versus, like Snake Eyes is a sergeant? I believe he's actually referred to as a sergeant in this issue. We don't call him Sergeant Snake Eyes. We don't, like, you know what I'm saying? I think it's funny that Lieutenant Falcon got the lieutenant tag on him. Same thing with Hawk, but that makes more sense because we already had Hawk as Hawk. Oh, my dogs are very excited about this. We already had Hawk as Hawk, and then he got the bump up and became General Hawk. Right, Mary Jane? And didn't Ace at one point wasn't one of the releases Captain Ace? And I think that was more for, I feel like that was a copyright thing. They made the change. But it's the question stands. So he's just Falcon. But why does no one else get the designation of lieutenant or colonel? You know what I mean? I get it. Well, colonel. Well, did they do? Yeah. So I know there have been a couple colonels. Sergeant Gridiron. Interesting. And so was Sergeant Gridiron just Gridiron at one point, and then he became Sergeant Gridiron? And what if he got promoted or demoted? And what if he became, would he ever have been Lieutenant Gridiron? These are the questions we need to figure out, guys. Anyway, it's Falcon, and he is Mark Breitzer on this, drawing the hell out of this issue, by the way. And he's hanging out this Ostriker, just shooting at something. Now we know that it's midnight in the desert of Trucial Abysmia, somewhere in the Middle East. The guys are on a mission. Now, also, big picture for you longtime Joe fans. We know what's coming up next issue. So I'll try not to foreshadow this too much.
Yo, Joe!
But one of the tells of this issue is that on this random mission we're looking at here, which is fun. It's a great mission. And I love it that we got a whole bunch of different vehicles and stuff. One of the tells is that we've got a lot of a wide variety of Joes, older Joes on this. Breaker is now in the mix. Thunder showed up out of nowhere to join the mission. Like I said, we've got Falcon. Crankcase is in the mix. Duke, it makes an appearance here. Sci-fi. So it's like this. It's kind of a nice little potpourri of Joes of all ages. And we know what that's come. We know why that grab bag happened for next issue. So the Joes have Cobra on the run, and they're taking out their terror drones here in Trucial Abysmia. And there's a lot of Techno Vipers that are on the run. The Joes are doing well, you know, they're doing well. And one of they have the frequencies jammed. That's the big deal with breakers out here. So they've got it says breaker still jamming on all freaks. So all frequencies, they're not able to get out any word of help. So the Joes are on their own, and there's just a lot of destruction. And we see one Televiper on a secure landline. So that means the Joes can't block it. And it says the Joes are coming back. Deploy the rage. Tell the driver to be sure to take the prearranged escape route, and that's really important. So this landline stopped all, radio calls, but did not stop it did not stop breakers. It was not stopped by breaker. Let's put that out there in English.
Yo, Joe!
Do you speak it? So now this is the Cobra Rage. This is the Cobra vehicle. It's not stopping for a fight. It's making a run for it. So all the Joes have to stop this vehicle because they think they've been jamming all the distress calls. And if this vehicle gets out of range, it's going to call in for support. So all the Joe vehicles, there's a Mauler, there's a Cross Country out there, and there's the Ostriker. They all start going after it. And there's a Warthog. Heavy metals in the Mauler MBT. He's Cross Country's in his Havoc. So it's a nice variety of vehicles, and none of them can catch this Cobra Rage.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, and that's a bang. Let's not go any further. We're doing a meanwhile back at the hospital in New York where Scarlet was, but that's just a 3-page. We're getting into action. Larry did a great job with balancing, introducing all the major players, all the names of the vehicles. The art was really clear as to what was happening. We're attacking these terror drones. That was a great setup in 3 pages. You got so much action. I feel like that would have been a whole issue in modern day, like decompressed storytelling. But now we're back at the Midtown Hospital. And you remember Scarlet went after Storm Shadow last issue because she was upset that he sent Snake Eyes, too many S's, on his suicide mission over to Barovia. So now Snake Eyes is actually back in New York, and he's got that little girl. What's her name? Whatever her name is. We'll get to her name. I forget what it is. But he's got the little girl that he rescued with her. And he gets stopped by some troopers who are on the floor, and this is where we learn that Snake Eyes, is a sergeant. He's like, some trooper says, "Hold up, Sergeant. This is now a restricted area. If you've got any authorization, let's see your papers." And there's this other dude comes over, and he's like, "You let this sergeant pass, young troop. Can't you read his fruit salad?" Talking about his infantry badge. This man has a CIB, a Silver Star, more Purple Hearts than they make additional awards for. And he basically says, anytime I see, you're going to get respect anytime I'm around. And he says this to Snake Eyes, and he appreciates that. So they go to Scarlet's room, and it's empty. So usually when you see that in a hospital, it's usually not good news.
Yo, Joe!
But in this case, Stalker shows up, and he says, "It's not what you think. Scarlet's alive, man. She came out of the coma," and this is filling us in for the new reader based on last month's adventures. And when she freaked out, when he found out she went to Barovia, and she blamed Storm Shadow. It's Marina, that's her name. And Stalker's filling us in. And these are those moments where, yes, it's narrative lifting, but it's following that rule, which I think is really important in comic books, that every comic book, it could be somebody's new first comic book. So you need to give them a little fill-in on what happened last issue. And you could do that in a variety of ways. It's a storytelling technique that has long since been dropped, I think, to the industry's detriment. And Stalker is filling us all in. So, and he's doing that talk where people repeat what Snake Eyes is saying because Snake Eyes can't actually say it. So he's like, "You've already been to Storm's Water Tower," which is what he's getting from Snake Eyes' verbal cues, etc. So they know they have to go looking for Scarlet. And meanwhile, Marina is going to stay with Law and Order. And here's Order making a best friend. And she asks, "Can I have an American hamburger and one for the nice doggy too?" I feel like Order is a nicer dog than Junkyard. I'm just throwing that out there. I feel like I'd have more fun with Order than I would with. I feel like Junkyard always would have an edge. And I know I hate to pit dogs against one another, no pun intended, but I do feel like Order would be a sweeter dude to hang out with in a hospital.
Yo, Joe!
Back in Trucial Abysmia, the chase continues. And really, no one can lay a finger on this guy in the Rage. As they say, he's a good evasive driver. He knows all the moves. And the vehicle is infrared shielded and jamming, so they can't lock onto him with any of there. It's all fire by sight. And it's in the dark. So they're having a lot of trouble catching up to him. Also, I would say this is one of those instances where drawing in comics most likely is not necessarily representing the actual distance they are from this guy. Because if you look, the Havoc, Cross Country's Havoc is like 3 car lengths behind the Rage. In reality, were they to stage this in real life, they're probably much further. But in comics, it's kind of it is one of the harder things to draw a car chase that's realistic. It's also really hard to do tailing someone, or sitting sitting outside someone's house. It's hard to draw that in a comic book because you have to have the person sitting in the car watching the house in the same frame as the house, and so your brain just starts going to, well, you're sitting right in front of this guy's house. Why can't he see you? Or tailing it, they have to draw the car they're tailing in the same frame as the driver. A lot of times they'll put the camera inside the front car, the seat, the dashboard, and then you see the car they're tailing. So it's like you're always right behind the car, and your brain kind of has to break a little and go, well, there's no way they're that close behind the car. But it's kind of the only way to translate that in the language of comics and having it still be compelling. You could always fix it with verbiage and say, "Oh yeah, I'm 2 blocks away," and and just not draw the car in the scene, but it doesn't work. Like your brain, it's one of those. I don't often point out flaws in the language of comics because I think comics can achieve almost anything with an unlimited budget, because you just got to draw it. But this is actually one of those flaws, distance and spatial relations, where you have to fit things in frame, and then the frame also has to fit in the page. So it's achievable, but it's often constrained by the layout of the page that you're dealing with. So that's my opinion. It's a little comic book language aside for you. I hope you guys appreciated that. So it's pretty cool. They realize in order to see this guy, because they're not going to lock on him, they have to pop a flare. So Falcon throws a flare up, and it gets really hairy real fast. There are a ton of hiss tanks and maggots flanking these guys, and we see that the Crimson Twins have been there. And one of the twins, is that Tomexter's name? It says it's a smart move to lay ambushes on all the prearranged escape routes. Oh, that was Zaymot who said that. And it's a trap. And what Falcon calls it, a classic enfilade. We're in the kill zone. So they've got outmaneuvered. And this is that, if you go back to that landline call, he says, escape along the prearranged escape route.
Yo, Joe!
Now, in New York City, they head to Columbia University. Quote, hey, we ain't calling on those guys who battle supernatural slime, are we? That's awesome. It's a Ghostbusters reference. And this is where Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are going. Snake Eyes is taking him there. And this is where Snake Eyes keeps his sensory deprivation tank, if you guys remember. We haven't visited this in quite a while. But it's where Snake Eyes would go to kind of meditate and heal his wounds. And we have seen it before. I can't remember the last time, but we have seen it before. But this is, he maintains it on the grounds at Columbia University. But behind it, in a secret panel, as Stalker says, Dag, do all you ninja types have these hidey holes hidden along the city? And it is like a weapons room. It's so just like Storm Shadow's water tower. Snake Eyes keeps this weapons room here by his secret sensory deprivation tank. And he's got this, quote, famous collection of spiked-knuckled trench knives that he keeps. He also has a nice picture of Scarlet on the wall. And this is cool, Quinn's 30 caliber machine gun. Quinn from back in the day. Speaking of that, I was happy. I just got my Super 7 Quinn, Destro, Baroness, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes. This is from I just got it from a Target order. Very excited. I think they look great. I also did the pre-order for the Cobra Commander and then the special edition Snake Eyes they did. Man, I can't wait. I really like those Super 7 figures. Those are kind of they got a soft spot in my heart because they're from the Sunbow stuff, which is what we did so much on the show.
Yo, Joe!
So Stalker and Snake Eyes are surprised to hear. Now, Snake Eyes, I truly believe, was just going there to re-up. And that's actually where Scarlet went to rescue Storm Shadow. Because they both look surprised as they walk into this other room where Snake Eyes keeps a bed. And Storm Shadow's laying there, bandaged up, but dying. And this was because Scarlet put a knife in him at the end of last issue. And there he is. He says, hey, old buddy. I messed up real bad, didn't I? But I'm glad you're okay. You and Scarlet, you'd be real happy. And don't fret about old Tommy. It's too late. He's lost too much blood. And he doesn't want to go to any real hospital because he figures General Crowther would arrest them. So it was this or just go and die in General Crowther's hands. But Stalker points out that Hawk's in the mix, and Snake Eyes came back with an affidavit from Magda, who is now running Barovia, and that affidavit is basically saying that Snake Eyes came and rescued and liberated their country. So they're going to be okay, but they got to get Storm Shadow to this hospital, and we don't think he's going to make it.
Yo, Joe!
This picture of Snake Eyes is fabulous. And he's in his dress. He's in his greens. He is, he's about to do the mindset. This first picture, the mindset picture. So the top right picture, it's a little dark, but I get what they're doing there. Like it's, you do want it in shadow because one, I'm sure there was a lot of shadow in that room. There's only one source of light. So it is going to throw a heavy shadow. So it's probably it is a great rendering of that. But it's a little dark for me to love it. But that first shot, the pose that he's in, it's this like battle stance. Like I'm about to get serious with you now, and his hands are about to come together. I really like the way they Mark Bright posed Snake Eyes in that, and he does the Arashikage mindset triangle hand thing that Tommy did to him, not only before the Barovia, but Tommy did it back in Vietnam in order to save Snake Eyes' life when Snake Eyes was shot and bleeding out on the helicopter. So this is his way to kind of channel his energy, his chi, into, stopping the blood loss and healing and knitting himself back to health. So Snake Eyes throws him into the mindset, and then now they're going to call an ambulance to get him to the hospital because he'll be able to survive the trip.
Yo, Joe!
Meanwhile, in Trucial Abysmia, things are not going well. The Warthog and the Havoc are both destroyed. Crazy Legs and who is talking that? That is Cross Country talking to Crazy Legs. They're going to double up on the Ostriker. Well, no, is that Duke saying that? Because he says, "I'm with you, Duke," but I think it's drawn like Cross Country. He's got his hat on. Anyway, Breaker's there. Things are going tits up. They're not good. And they got to break through break through this line and get some distance. Breaker's radio is busted, and now they've got helicopters putting spotlights on them. So the Joes are really in trouble.
Yo, Joe!
The balancing act that Larry does in this issue between this all-out action, military action going on, and then this personal drama action over here in New York is really, really nice. He knows when to hit the gas, when to revisit it, when to pop back to New York. It's well done. So now they're in an ambulance. They're headed to the hospital, and this medic is like, "This guy's gonna pull through. Just willpower, you say?" And Scarlett's like, "Yeah, you could say that." And this is where Stalker tells Snake Eyes, "Hey man, we found this on one of those new ninjas we were fighting. It's got concrete dust all over it, and it smells like it's all burnt up. Now you and I both know what that could possibly be." And they were talking about the Cobra Consulate, but it's a small world. They happen to be driving right next to the Cobra Consulate and the ambulance at that moment. So Snake Eyes jumps out the back door.
Yo, Joe!
So now we do see a little more detail of to what the Cobra Consulate is. I remember we were talking about this last issue where I loved that Cobra Commander made his home, but wasn't it abandoned and boarded up by the city, right? And we see more of that now, that the place is a burned out shell. The fire department declared it unsafe and sealed it off months ago. So it's been months since Snake Eyes destroyed this place. You think that would stop Cobra from using the place? You think that would stop? You think that would stop Cobra? He's talking about sealing it off, and no, of course not. So so Cobra is using it in defiance of the state ordinances. How dare they? And we revisit Cobra Commander at the top of the temple, and he's basically saying, "You ninjas failed. You guys suck. And how dare you say that we handicapped you, with this mission, etc., so on and so forth. Victory belongs to those who have the courage to strike hard and fast and ignore the casualties."
Yo, Joe!
Now we cut back to Trucial Abysmia, and the Joes are they're giving up. They're saying, "Hey, time to throw in the towel. We've got too many wounded men who need treatment. Throw down your weapons. We are officially surrendering." This is Duke, and Doc's there too. I don't know if we've mentioned Doc yet. And Zaymont and Tomax are, "How convenient to place the blame for surrender upon the wounded. Much better than admitting to one's cowardice," which draws a spit in the face from Duke. And he says, "You wouldn't know anything about feeling for your troops, would you? Patooey." And they both punch Duke in the face, and they proceed to stomp on his face. And they say, quote, "If we have our way, you'll never, ever leave Trucial Abysmia. Never, ever." And they leave Duke bleeding in the sand after a severe face stomp. Duke really got busted.
Yo, Joe!
And now back to New York. A grenade gets thrown right in the middle of the Cobra Enclave. And they're like, "Hit the deck. Where did that?" And we see it's Snake Eyes, and he's just jumping from the rooftop. Cobra Commander pulls a pistol, but Snake Eyes is just, he's cutting through all the Vipers and Televipers and Techno Vipers, etc. So all these shots are missing Snake Eyes and probably hitting his own people. And they say, "Commander, or Cobra Commander says he has no jurisdiction on consulate property. Waste him." Someone said, "That man doesn't give two figs about your jurisdiction." This page is great. It starts with a long shot, and the first word is grenade. And then you get some explosions from that grenade with a little bit of a closer, kind of a medium long shot to set the scene here. You get enough of Cobra Commander sitting on his throne to kind of fill us in on where Snake Eyes is coming from. You see he's just a black blob in the background. And then it's a real close-up on him, but just leaping into the fray. And then this Cobra Commander pulling his pistol, that's great body work. The pistol breaks over the borders of the panel. There's speed lines. You see his eye, like you see enough of his eye, like it's a well-placed pistol. There's a great arch to his back. Like, there's a lot of action in that panel. And then it's just Snake Eyes cutting through the bad guys, with him as the focal point in the center panel. So I'm going to probably be wrong here because I'm going to predict it. But I have a feeling when we get to the next page, there's going to be a narrative payoff to just this visual, these two panels of Snake Eyes in the middle, kind of cutting people down. Probably going to be wrong, but we're going to bet. We're going to bet live, baby. We're doing it live.
Yo, Joe!
It works for me. I wouldn't say it is huge, but it works. You basically get, it was a panel of Snake Eyes, kind of half obscured by Vipers, and then it's he's still cutting through more Vipers, and then this top panel, which is the height of the page, and it's kind of blown up where it's Snake Eye, full body Snake Eyes, just coming in through the air directly at Cobra Commander. Everyone's still shooting at him, so I think it works. I mean, I think it works. I think if you're drawing this page panel by panel, and you're laying out these pages side by side, I think that's a nice. I think that is a nice transition. And I'm not just saying that. But Snake Eyes gets all the way up to Cobra Commander without getting shot, and he puts one of his trench knives to his throat. Cobra Commander says, "What do you want?" What am I saying? The madman is mute, and Stalker has followed Snake Eyes, but like taken his time. He took the stairs, so to speak. And we say here, Stalker explains it. He says, Cobra Commander sent his goons after Snake Eyes. He made it personal. Now Snake Eyes has a personal message for Cobra Commander. Get out of town, go back to Cobra Island, and never set foot in this city again. Is that clear? The Cobra Commander is looking right into Snake Eyes' eyes, and Stalker says, "The man is waiting for his answer, chump." And I think we all know what his answer is going to be, but it's great. Like this is awesome. This is just taking it to him.
Yo, Joe!
And the next day in Washington D.C., General Hawk is meeting General Crowther. Remember, Crowther is the guy who sent Major Blood after Storm Shadow. He's also the guy that is drawn to look like Chuck Norris. And Hawk is basically saying, you need to lay off Snake Eyes, Stalker, and Storm Shadow. This has gone far enough. And Crowther demurs and says, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. And that's when Hawk points out that in the newspaper, Magda is now, it says former circus star elected president of Barovia. And Magda knows all about how Strawhacker was set up to rot in a gulag to feed disinformation to the Soviets. She also knows that you sent Major Blood to kill Snake Eyes. So the leader of a nation now, her word is going to trump any weight that this star, 3-star general, 4-star general, whatever he is going to carry. So basically, it's going to be her word against his. So you back off, otherwise we're gonna lay it on you. And then General Hawk lays the, you don't even understand the Constitution. You swore an oath before God and country to protect this with your life, and he slams on the actual Constitution. He says, you should read it sometime, General Crowther. It's the Constitution. The Constitution.
Yo, Joe!
And finally, this issue ends in a really nice, serene way, and a nice way to wrap up this Snake Eyes story. This really, fun. I'm going to say drawn out, but I don't mean that in a bad way. This extended Snake Eyes adventure that he had. Marina says somewhere in America, so we don't actually know where Wade Collins lives, but it says the station wagon pulls up. It's Stalker, it's Tommy. Tommy's got a cane, so he's on the men. Scarlet, Snake Eyes, and Marina. And they drop her off with Wade Collins. And Wade is living there now with his, you remember he and his fake Cobra family were like, let's get out. So they're all adopted. They're trying to make a normal life for themselves outside of Cobra. So Marina is going to live with Wade. These kids say, hey, I'm Sean, and this is Heather. Want to play Nintendo? We got the X-Men. Remember we were talking about that, how the game was kind of terrible. She says, you don't mind me being adopted? And they say, heck, we're all adopted, even the aunts and the uncles. And so it's Wade and his wife, and Scarlet says, good to know where home is, and Snake Eyes and Tommy and like everyone's happy. Like this is actually a genuinely nice wrap up to this storyline. Scarlet's alive, Snake Eyes is quasi healed, Tommy's alive, Stalker's alive. They rescued this little girl, and Wade's family's going to grow for a little bit, so it's nice. And then next issue, Death in the Desert. So that's not going to last long. And we get these great dossiers as teased on the cover. Not going to read the whole thing because it's basically it's a retelling of Snake Eyes' whole origin from issue 1, but it's great. They did a great job with it, and it's Marvel Handbook style stuff, but without the physical detail stuff that normal handbooks have. But it gives you a full rundown of where he was and where he came from. It's got a great Andy Kubert Snake Eyes drawing, really really cool Andy Kubert Snake Eyes. And then it's neat. They give him a little bibliography at the end, and it talks about, like, you can read about his adventures with Quinn in issues 12 and 19. It's talking about Silent Interlude in issue 21. So this is good for you listeners in case you guys are just joining us or new. The Snake Eyes origin was in issue 26 and 27, and these are all issues that I covered on Joe Illustrated. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they attack Cobra Island in 45 through 47. Snake Eyes' first adventure in Barovia was from 63 through 66, and that's when he first met the Blind Master. And there was another Snake Eyes silent story in the Gi Joe Yearbook, number 3, and then the Snake Eyes trilogy, which we just finished, was 94 to 96. There's also a cool Cobra Commander dossier. Same style, same level of depth and detail, which is great. What's exciting is this picture of Cobra Commanders by the master himself, Neil Adams. Neil Adams doing Cobra Commander, and he looks great. Really great. And his bibliography recommends part of the Cobra Commander origin story in 38 and 84. The Billy Assassination, Billy is his son, assassination plot storyline started in 30 and ended in 38. The plotline about Cobra Commander rediscovering Billy stretches from 55 to 61. Cobra Commander makes his comeback in 98. And Cobra Commander launches his new programming, like his new program of conquest, in issue 100. That's awesome. And if that's not enough for you guys, they also jam-packed it with a blueprint for the Gi Joe Locust, which is that dope, tiny little buzz vehicle that we talked about recently, where it was off my radar, but I kind of like it because it's a tiny little one-man helicopter, and it gets the job done. So you get a blueprint of the Locust on here. And then in Poke's Box from the Pit, we've got letters from Dan, Steven, and he also goes by the name C.O. Klooster from Charing Cross, Ontario. Thomas Wheeler out of Tucson, Arizona. And Alex Four Eyes Newborn out of MSC, Alabama. I'm not sure. Is that... not sure if is that a military post or something, but it just says MSC, Alabama. And this is interesting. So Larry tells a story in one of these letters where I tried to Google this and find the story because I wanted to share this with you guys. So I wasn't able to find it. And I don't know if in the intervening years the story was debunked or whatever. So I'm not saying it wasn't true or it didn't happen. I'm not going down that route. But talks about, someone's asking how are the guys that were still trapped in the oil freighter on Cobra Island going to be surviving. And he says there's an obnoxiously big pile of surplus ham and lima beans, sea rations stowed on that freighter. And it says, true story, during World War II, when the Wehrmacht was retreating out of France, a sapper team was left behind to blow up a fortified bunker. Somehow they were trapped by tons of collapsing steel. They had a storeroom full of grain to eat, water seepage to drink, and enough air passage to breathe, but they had no light. As time passed and some of them died, they buried them under the grain. 20 years later, when the bunker was being demolished to make way for the suburban developments, this would have been circa, 1965, a few of them were still alive. Not too sane, but alive. Now, I Googled that story using some of those keywords. I couldn't find anything about it. That's wild if that's true, if that's a true story. It might have been like a crazy story that was running around at the time that was since debunked. So not saying that Larry made this up. I'm sure he read it somewhere. But does anyone know what that story is? Because that's a crazy story. I'd love to read the details of that. If they really were alive for 20 years in this underground bunker. oh my God, like what would that have been about? Anyway, this has been great. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I have. And until next time, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.